Maybe it's time I retired the coat.
You still have it.
Some kids with a deer rifle put 2 holes in the sleigh, one in me. All I have is a loathing for a world that's forgotten.
The United States military would like to procure your services.
This is a one-time deal, gentlemen. How are you, Mike? Nicole and the kids are well, I hope.
Where are you?
You just lost a big son, Fatman!
What's the job?
I'd like you to kill Santa Claus.
I'm looking for the fat man.
You can't be serious.
This is what people actually think of me. Christmas is a farce. I am a joke.
What's the purpose of your visit?
Hunting. I'm gonna kill some things.
There is a rising number of our youth making poor decisions.
I want the big man's head.
Severed heads rot, they mold.
They don't want his beard.
I'm not shaving off a dead man's beard.
Your workers sure have healthy appetites.
That's why elves live much longer than humans.
And Chris, he does the same?
No, it's a giving that keeps him young.
I've come for your head, fat man!
Dashing through the snow on a one-horse open sleigh.
You think you're the first?
All the fields will go,
Think I got this job because I'm fat and jolly?
laughing all the way. Jingle bells, jingle all the way. Oh, what fun it is to ride in a one-horse open sleigh.
How come while you sleep? The fat man's got his eye on you, kid.
Hey, whoa!
Oh, that's Donner. Lucky it wasn't Blitzer. Should tear your package clean off.
On this episode of Nerdly Out Loud, I'm just so thrilled with this one. This one's fantastic. I reached out to these guys and I couldn't believe that they even entertained coming on the show. I recently watched the movie that they have recently put out. You are all going to love it. Tonight I'm joined by writer-directors Eshom and Ian Nelms, who after a short period of time making short movies and feature films, they've come out of the gate and they've made 2 pretty gritty and grounded movies like Small Time Crimes and the Mel Gibson vehicle Fatman, which is what we're mostly here to talk about tonight. It's safe to say you guys have found your wheelhouse with these films.
It's great. Thank you for having us, Kevin. We really appreciate it, brother.
Yeah, we're on here, Kevin. So thanks for having us, brother.
It's great, man. It's great. I mean, I watched the movie. I thoroughly enjoyed the movie. I put a review out there. Wasn't expecting any of the directors to kind of drop a little like and a little retweet. And it's like, you know what? In for a penny, in for a pound. Come on the podcast. So first of all, before we get into this, I just want to say, man, that this movie is a total vibe. This is the ultimate 2020 sort of anti-Christmas movie. I was saying before we got into this that I'm not really a massive Christmas movie fan. This one, I heard Mel Gibson was making a Santa Claus movie. I was kind of like, okay. I saw the trailer, and you know what? There's something to the trailer that just instantly got me, and I'm like, yeah, I'm watching this. And of course, Walton Goggins is in there. And as I said in my review, and I wasn't trying to be like facetious or patronizing or anything, but it kind of looked like Mel Gibson is making a movie that he cares about.
Well, Mel, I don't know. I've never seen Mel any other way. I mean, he's all in. He desperately loves making movies. And it's weird, I think, because you mentioned like it feels very 2020. Ian and I first wrote this script 14 years ago.
Yes.
And so it's been, and look, this isn't just like we wrote a script, put it in the drawer, didn't touch it, right? But we conceived this idea that long ago, got a first draft that was relatively coherent, and then evolved it over the years. But strangely, like every year, it felt more relevant. And then as we got into 2020, Ian and I are just looking at each other in disbelief. We're like, wow, that just feels like the most relevant the script's ever been. So it was really cool to have the story drop now in the perfect storm, so to speak.
We started pre-production in 2019, and we finished shooting one day before they closed all the other productions down in Canada, and then we flew back a few days after that to the United States. But it was crazy how backed up and tight everything was, and how perfectly it all kind of lined out. Because I mean, we barely got out of there by the skin of our teeth with the movie, and then we were locked down while we were editing and doing post. So it was just it feels a little like kismet that we finished it on time, and that we finished it when we did, because we were able to spend the first 6 months of the lockdown in my basement editing it and doing post on it. So and then of course everything just the tension in the world kind of got tighter and tighter, crazier and crazier, and the movie became more relevant.
Yeah, and I think with like the world feeling the crunches of the COVID quarantines and the financial crunch that everyone's feeling right now, it's like it only feels natural that would be extended to the north, and Chris might be suffering some of that.
It is pretty mad, because you kind of the way you've made this movie, like most Christmas movies out there, you're either going to watch a horror Santa where Santa's going to be trying to kill you, or you're going to be watching a schmaltzy Santa where he's the jolly old fat man. And then here you come along with this sort of Christopher Nolan kind of David Fincher-esque Santa Claus story where it's completely grounded in the reality, but slightly surreal in places. And I love that. And it, to me, it was so 2020. And it's what kept me so engrossed the whole way through, and the fact that Santa's now got taken contracts from the government, and it's just like it's mad. Where when you came up with this 14 years ago, what was the seed that was planted in your head that was like, right, we're gonna make Santa Claus this way?
No, I mean, look, a lot of things had danced around the idea, but like there was nothing that had done it with a really grounded Santa Claus. There was like room in the genre, and Ian and I were like,
the craziest thing after we made it here and put it out, it's been pretty incredible to see the sort of, I mean, I've seen over a dozen, like, oh, maybe they got the idea from this, maybe they got the idea from that, maybe they got the idea from this, with different trailers and books and it's just, there's the amalgam of little things that were sort of getting in this direction but never really went full tilt. And we were just like, man, was this on the edge of like, the social conscience of the world? And it just never really, it just never really came. And we were just the first ones that kind of luckily were able to go make it, because I didn't know of 90% of there were things that would come out once in a while that we'd be like, oh man, I hope that doesn't tread on our movie, and then thank goodness they didn't. And then it was just really interesting to see all the things that people were finding in society that existed over the last 20 years that they thought we maybe were inspired by, because I didn't know about 90% of those. And I was just like, man, this must have been like, it just feels like something that was so close to teetering on at so many times. We feel lucky that we were the ones able to bring it in, honestly. And of course, if someone else had done it, it would have been a little bit more this way or a little bit more that way. But yeah, it was really interesting to see afterwards. But yeah, I think our main idea was, we love films like Unbreakable and like Leone Westerns and Unforgiven. Films
we were
that really
like our first DVDs that we ever purchased, and mine was Unbreakable and Ian's was Unforgiven.
Nice.
Which is crazy to think about. That's kind of a great mashup of what this film, some of what this film is. It's got these flawed characters that are trying to find themselves and trying to be redemptive, and then of course like Chris, in that sort of Unforgiven way, is this old badass but can't quite find his mojo, and then a bunch of horrible shit happens and he's able to sort of it galvanizes him and he becomes a fraction of what he used to be. Then of course the Unbreakable side of it, it's a very grounded, thriller-esque character study of a guy who has these powers and is this magnificent, fantastical person, but hasn't been actualizing it in a few hundred years probably. But in Unbreakable, a guy that didn't even know he had it.
Like I'll be honest with you, like I'm a huge fan of Unbreakable, like from back in the day, and I don't think I've really put that together. But you're spot on. It is very Unbreakable like.
And a lot of this stuff, right? It's like, I'm sure it's a lot of the stuff that you do creatively as well. It's like when you're making something, you're not like, oh, this is like Unbreakable, and you're like, going crazy to try to get it down. But at the end of the day, when you start looking, you start hindsight, you start looking back at it, and you're like, what were my influences on this? Like, what was it that sent me in this direction? Or, oh, it must be this and it must be that. And then we start finding little things, and like we were talking about just the first DVDs that we bought, and we're like, oh man, those are some of our favorite films, And our mom, when we were growing up, this was a big one too that we had a realization with after Small Town.
This might be even stronger. Yeah, like this might be a stronger influence.
And it's harder for us, and that was like we were able to look at that after Small Town Crime, and then now looking forward, I mean, it just influences everything we've ever done. But our mom was a big movie person, and she had this Clint Eastwood collection, and she would get a new VHS copy every 2 weeks, and we would wear those things out watching them. It was all the Dirty Harrys, and it was all the Leone Westerns, and all the Westerns that he directed himself. Like we just chewed those up. Even a lot of the minor Eastwood, you would say, like the Firefox and the Eiger Sanction, and like we wore those tapes out because it was what we had. And if you just look at that guy's canon of work, like all the Dirty Harrys and the Leone Westerns, I mean, that has a lot of influence on us as well in our work, as we realize now.
Especially in the tail end of the movie, I guess, as well. There's it's very good, the bad, the ugly kind of sense to it, which is just an amazing little 20-25 minutes. Just you guys just throw the kitchen sink at that.
We went hard, man.
Well, you have to, because the thing is, it's a very slow burn thriller, and it's kind of just keeping you sort of going along, and you've got these three different stories going on. You've got Walton's character, you've got the government storyline, you've got Santa not really wanting, well, not that he doesn't want to be Santa, but he's feeling the pinch, as you say, and you kind of need that last 20 minutes to just blow out.
Yeah, right? Like, because you watch movies like this, and sometimes they don't throw the lever all the way. You know what I'm saying? And they kind of like give up like a little clever something or this or that, and like some people rolling around, and then you're like, okay, it's over. Ian and I, like we just want, like when we go to the climax, we like to put everything we have available to us in it, and obviously this one's no different.
We went as hard as we
could. So guys, been sitting on this movie for 14 years, shopping it around and trying to get it made and everything. And I'm assuming it was a case of, this is our baby, we are going to make this movie, nobody else is touching it. But was Mel Gibson always in your head for Santa? Was he your guy for this film, or did you have to kind of coax him into it?
Well, okay, so there's a couple iterations of that. So 14 years ago, obviously we had a different actor in mind.
Yeah,
Mel was so much younger, he's in his 40s. So
yeah, we were like, oh, wouldn't it be cool to get like Jack Nicholson for this? That was sort of like who was in our mind's eye at this time. And then cut forward, to like about 2016, 2017. And Ian and I were at a screening of Hacksaw Ridge.
Nice.
And Gibson came out to do a Q&A afterwards. And he had this beard, and he kind of was like, it was a little wary from the production. And he was sitting there kind of kneading his beard and like answering questions, but he still had a twinkle in his eye. And we were just like, oh, wow, he really feels like he's carrying the burden of the world on his shoulders with that beard. He looks great, that beard. And we just looked at him like, man, that is Chris. That's our guy right there. And cut to 3 years later after that, we were putting the picture together, and we, submitted to his agent, had to go through the traditional process. And that was a pretty big moment. I mean, we were getting, we're trying to find a producer, trying to find money, trying to find actors. And this email shows up in Ian's box. What did it say?
Oh, sorry. And I got this email. I was replying to a lot of producers at the time, or financiers, saying, oh yeah, great, I'm glad you dug the script. And I got this email that said, hey, I love the script, thought it was really funny, let's sit down for a chin wag. And we were like, okay, well, wag first off.
What are we getting into?
There was no sign off, and the email isn't obvious. It wasn't like Mel 26 or whatever, it was like, it's like pseudonym. It's just a weird name. Mm-hmm. So I was like, hey, great, thanks. I thought it was another financier or producer. I was like, hey, thanks, great. Looking forward to chatting with you about it. Glad you dug it. Who am I talking with? And then he wrote back, oh, it's Mel. And then I remember I was like, oh my God, he liked it. And we were so pumped. I think Esh and I hugged for sure. And then after that, we were scheduled to sit down with him for like a 45-minute chat at a cafe. And we were like, okay, great. And which turned into 3.5 hours later, we were we were just talking and jamming and talking about his movies, talking about movies in general, talking a lot about Fatman. And it wasn't until the moment when he starts, I mean, we knew he was our guy, but this like cemented it, is when he was talking about the moment in the script with the elves where he's looking out on the balcony over them. And he's got to break this bad news to them. And he's like, yeah, I feel like I should play that scene like I'm about to cry. Like I'm that sad. I'm that torn up about it. And we're like, yeah, exactly. And he goes, and that's what's going to make it so funny. And we're all exactly like that horrible moment he's having and how ridiculous that scenario is what's so funny about it. And what's so, I mean, it might not be something where you're laughing out loud hysterically, but it's something that definitely, I think, tickles a certain person, which it tickles us for sure.
Yeah, man. Sometimes they are the funniest moments. I mean, laugh out loud is good, but I'm British. I like a good dry laugh. So there you go. But I don't want to drop the tone too much or anything like that. But I don't put a lot of faith or a lot of credence into things that get said about people behind the scenes and everything. But Mel Gibson does come with a certain, background. What people think of and everything. What was he like to collaborate with? Because at the end of the day, it's Martin Riggs. I mean, that's everyone's dream to work with. What was he like?
He was one of the best collaborators we've ever worked with. I remember when we were initially thinking of casting him in the role or going after him even, we did as much homework as we could on the guy because, I mean, yeah, there are certain things that have happened in his past. I mean, about 15 years ago, but we were curious as well because we didn't know the guy. The one thing we had done, which was interesting, is we'd worked with Danny Glover,
nice.
Like 2 movies previously. And we pumped him because we're huge Lethal Weapons fans. And we were like, man, what's Mel like? He was like, I love that man. I love him. He had nothing but amazing things to say. But anybody we talked to, and we did our homework, we went and talked to everybody that we could about him who had worked with him or worked for somebody that knew him or worked with him at any time. And we said, hey, we're thinking about casting him in this movie. And they were like, do it. You're going to love it. Do it. You have the experience. Do it. We're like, okay, shit. So when we went out to him and he said yes, we were like, okay. We sat down with him. What's this going to be like? And man, even from that first meeting, it was just like, obviously the encyclopedic sort of cinema mind is there, but when you're on set with that guy, he's all in and he's very much like helping you. He knows his position. He knows who he is. He's been in front and behind that camera and he's there to galvanize that crew along with you. So we were out in like negative 35-degree weather on that shootout. That last shootout took us 4 days to shoot and it was like negative 35 for 4 days straight. And he refused to go in the warming tent. He wouldn't go in the warming tent. He stayed out there in the snow with us for like 14 hours of the day. And we're dressed like we're summiting Everest. We have all the gear on because we know we're going to be out there all day. He's in his costume with fingerless gloves. He has no gloves on that cover his fingers because he has to work a trigger. So he's constantly keeping his hands in his pockets, trying not to get frostbite. And he's got a tea. He's out there for 14 hours a day for 4 days straight. We said, hey, man, go to that warming tent. He was all, no way. If you guys are out here, I'm out here. I'm not going inside. He's like, that's just, how I roll. We're like, okay, damn. And that was so galvanizing to everybody. The crew's like, well, I got nothing to complain about. If that guy's out here in his paper costume, basically, like they were just like, let's go. And every time a cast member would come out, he'd be like, hey, and he'd walk over and chat up with them and chat with them. And he'd talk to anybody, a PA, a camera guy, us. He would chat and you could ask him anything about anything. And he's great. He's a very open book about anything.
I mean, as well, let's be honest, the dude filmed Braveheart in bloody Scotland. You can't get much cooler than that.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good point. Yeah, he just gets it. He gets what atmosphere he needs to come to work with every day to get the most out of everything.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I'm glad to hear that because you do hear stories, and I just want to hear about Martin Riggs. He's awesome.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, it's like one of the best collaborations we've ever had.
And talking about collaborations, one of my absolutely favorite things about this movie, the movie is a fantastic film, but one of my favorite things is the dynamic between Mel and Marianne JeanBaptiste. They are just perfect in this film, and I put that in my review. I was kind of like, I wish my wife looked at me the way she looks at him. Like what was they like? Was that relationship, that dynamic on the page as you wrote it, or did they bring that out?
Quite a bit of both, right? Like
we were certainly going for it. So I mean, and it was a lot of us just talking to them, right? I mean, these guys are such professionals and such good actors, and they have such good chemistry. It goes beyond the acting. I mean, they would be chatting in between takes, and he'd be making her laugh because he's constantly making people laugh. He's very funny, and she was funny, and they're both really intelligent. So they would just have these crazy. I mean, Mel's knowledge of odd things is so he would go off about something, and she would laugh, and she'd be punching him in the arm. I mean, it was fun, man. They had a lot of fun in between takes. They were always smiling and laughing with each other and very warm. It was fun. I mean, and they're so talented that at the end of these scenes, they would keep going, and they would like, if we wouldn't say cut, we would let them keep going because it was fun to watch them improv and be warm with each other and playful. Yeah, man, it was. I mean, we were feeding that for sure.
Yeah, I mean, like the little part with like the rolling pin and stuff like that. Yeah, that's them. That's them just kind of coming up with stuff, and there'd be a little bit different variation every take. You know, it was fun. It was a great time.
There's a little scene that it completely sold the relationship between the two of them for me was when he's about to go out and do his deliveries, as we'll say, and she's got the naughty list, or she's got the list, and she's like, "Do you not want to read it?" And he's kind of like, "I haven't got time for that," and he kind of walks off. The look she gives him is just utterly fantastic. It's this, come on, man, just pull yourself out of this. But she's so committed to the team, to the relationship. She ain't going to say anything. It's just a look. It's fantastic. Nails it.
How many times have we seen that from our own partners?
like I say, that's the only time my wife looks at me the same way she did. He's wrote this together, and that's probably one of my favorite things is that scene with them. But the Walton Goggins scene in the car when he's talking to Chance over the phone about collecting a trophy. Who gets the most credit out of you two for this dialogue? Because I love that little exchange between them.
I wish we could tell, Kevin. I really do. I wish we could tell. At this point, the way that we work, it's so infused and layered. Like, I can't tell you who wrote what in that scene. Ash, do you remember any line that anybody wrote in that scene?
Dude, I just so we kind of like spitball ideas, and then we'll like a version that happens, and Ian will run off or hack up a version or vice versa, and then it'll get sent to me, and then I'll do my thing to it and send it back to him. So it just sort of like we just sort of lob it back and forth until we feel it's done. And honestly, like Ian and I were like, we literally, when we look at the script at the end of the day, we cannot distinguish what line the other one wrote. Like I would say 99% of the time.
95% of it, we probably can't tell. We can't distinguish who wrote what. The other 5% is like very, specific lines that one of us was passionate about, or a specific action that one of us was very passionate about, that the other one was like, okay, yeah, if you can see this, go ahead and put it down, because I'm either on the fence, or like sometimes that happens in our process, but we always let the most passionate person win. So if he writes something down, or I write something down, and the other person is very passionately for it or against it, it either goes out or stays in. And if we usually fight it back and forth until we can see it, and we're like, okay, great, that stays in. Boom, we both like it, we can see it, done.
You might take some acting out once in a while. So might have to act out the scene.
Yeah. Yeah, a lot of times, and that'll happen too, right? Like we'll say, what do you think of this line? And we'll put it down, and he'll be like, I'm not feeling that line. I don't like it for this reason. And then one of us will say, well, what if he did it like this? And, we're not master thespians, but we can at least get the connotation enough there to where you can see how it would play if a certain actor of a certain caliber was doing the lines. And you're like, oh, well, if they said it like that, that would actually work,
But imagine me as Mel Gibson.
That's so cool as well, because normally when you talk to writers of movies, it tends to be one guy holed up in a room for the most part, and then they pass on to the next guy, and then they pick it up, and then if you're on some of these big budget movies, the script will be rewritten by about 10 different guys, but you guys are getting to like nail lines off each other and just like, right, that works, that doesn't work, get rid of that. That's cool. It must be a good process.
Honestly, I don't envy anyone in the solitary writing process. It's much funner for us to sort of bat the ideas around. I mean, I always say like if we get stuck or whatever, we're like, let's just get together for 10 minutes and we'll spitball an idea. And like next thing you know, that turns into an hour and we've cracked the idea and we're stoked and we're off.
But like even if a line, even if a line comes out, like say I'll write a line, we'll put it down. One of us will write a line. It'll go down on the page. The other one comes in and changes half of that line, or likes the idea of that line, but doesn't like the way that it's written. And then they change it. And then I'll come in and read what he's written, or vice versa, and be like, yeah, it's still not right. And I'll change a couple words, and he'll come back and change a couple words. And then we'll be down to changing one word in that sentence. And as you can see, like by the end of that, like we've gone over it 6 or 7 times a piece, and we're literally changing one word in it now. Like you just can't even tell who wrote where, you know?
One of the lines you talk about passionate lines that you want to try and keep in and everything, and it's literally my favorite delivered line of the whole movie is Mr. Walton Goggins when he drops the Santa Claus mother effer. Whose passionate line was that? Because my God, when he drops that line, that was it. I was sold. I would say Walton Goggins, like I'm a big fan anyway, but whose line was that? Can one of yous?
I actually think that line went like this. We had a series of lines in there, and I don't know if it said that exactly right there, but there was a Santa Claus and there was a fuck or something in there. And I remember Walton saying something like, remember Esh when he goes, can I, how much us? And
I remember asking that.
And we're like, dude, you can cuss as much as you want. We're going R. He's like, oh, great. So then he comes in. And I mean, that's the great thing about working with Walton is he's trying to find those moments as well. So we have moments built into the script that we think are going to play really well. And he destroys those. And you're like, wow, those are fucking great. And then he comes in and tries to find moments of his own, you know? And I think that one, I would love to give him credit for that one.
Yeah, it may have been for sure.
It's possible that he came, I think he came in and was like, all right, I can cuss, great. And he goes, where's Santa Claus? Where's the Batman or whatever? And he goes, Santa Claus, motherfucker. And we're like, oh shit. You know?
It is a total mic drop. It is, because it's just a fantastic line. And I'm a big fan of Walton. And I said in my review that often he gets cast in movies that don't really know how to use him. Obviously they cast him because he's amazing. But in this movie, it's completely his wheelhouse. This plays to all his strengths. He's so good in this film. And you guys nailed it casting him for the skinny man.
Well,
we were thrilled, man.
Especially with an actor like him, right? With an actor like him, like he's so good. He brings so much to the table. I mean, it's not, hey, how do we prompt more out of this guy? It's literally like, you know, at times you're like,
keep the camera.
What's that? Oh yeah, just keep the camera rolling. The guy, because I mean, you have so many wonderful conversations with him leading up to shooting. Like he'll ask you a ton of questions, and then he'll go away for a month before shooting, and he'll build all of it up in his head. And he's like, okay, I got this. And he comes back and he's delivering something that's, you know, 110% of what you all talked about. You know, he's built and laid the guy up.
And he's also come back with like, hey, can we do this? Can we do that? He's got a wealth of ideas that he wants to throw at you, like the Chinese restaurant scene. Like he wanted that. He was like, hey, is you guys have a scene where I'm like in a Chinese restaurant eating? I'm like, yeah, like why not?
But I mean, cool. That's fun, because if you have the time for something like that, like he's like, I just want to be eating at a Chinese restaurant, because we were trying to build this attachment to him and like Asian culture, like why he's into martial arts and like why he's all this self-taught. He's a self-taught guy, so of course he would be into Asian culture. You know, we were thinking in this thing. So he's like, well, maybe I should have this scene in this Chinese restaurant. I really want to eat. You know, I want to show how this guy's process. We're like, okay, great. So then
remember, he really wanted to order tea and speak Chinese.
Yep.
Yeah.
So it was little things like that, and then it's up to us to try to craft a scene in there, and we're throwing our layer on top of it. It's great. Those are fun collaborations, because if an actor like that, or you know, you bring in these actors and you want them to add. You don't want them to just come in and try to do what's on the paper. You want them to try to come in and like bring the pain. You want them to bring something to that role, you know?
Yeah, if they're going to inhabit that character, it's like there is going to be stuff that's going to happen that they're going to say, oh, like my character, you know, and that's all like a great conversations. And look, we weren't able to do everything, you know, but we are able to do as much as we can.
How was it like with these guys with such talent? Like, were you able to just turn around and say, no, I don't want it done like that? Or was it a case of, you know what, if that's what you think is going to work, go for it?
No, everyone was super collaborative. And I think the biggest part of the hurdle is like making sure you're all on the same page out of the gate.
Yeah.
Right. So then you're not having any loggerhead moments on set where someone's set one way and you're set the other way and you're sort of colliding. for us, like we make sure we get all those conversations out of the way in the front, and then we pick the people that we feel are all on the same page and want to make the same movie.
And then it comes down to process as well. I mean, I see what you're asking. It's like, how do you get some of those layered performances? And it's like I was saying, like you have a lot of conversations with the actors, and then they build it out. And then if they have questions, they come back to you. And if you hire someone as talented as the folks that we have in there, you trust them because that's what you're hiring. That's why you brought them in. And then when Esh and I are directing, like the first thing we do is just trust the hell out of the people that we've hired. And we try to give them the first 2 or 3 takes. And if for some reason if we're not gelling with something that they were doing for the first 2 or 3 takes, it doesn't matter. We shut up and we just let them find it and have their moment and be very complimentary and try to just help them guide what they're doing, or say, hey, yeah, go for it. Like, and then usually, I mean, 99% of the time, actors of this caliber are fucking killing it and on it, or you wouldn't have had them there in the first place. And then it's just little moments of like, oh, what if we try this? What if we try that? And then, or someone like Walton will be like, let me give you 125% on this next take. It might be too much, but let's go for it. And at least we'll have it if it works,
Yeah, those are the ones where the whole crew is on the ground laughing, and it probably isn't going to be in the movie, but it was definitely worth the time to do it.
Yeah, I imagine that's a very, very delicate tightrope to walk, because there are certain situations where this movie could become way too farcical, or it could go completely the other way, and you kind of just you strike a fantastic balance here. Was there any rules that was kind of like, what? These are the boundaries, don't go over this way, don't go over that way? Was there anything that you had in place?
I don't think there's any hard and fast and set rules, but you're just going off a gut, right? So when we have some options, that are way up here, and we have some options that are less, subdued. And Ian and I just sort of let the film speak to us. And if something feels like it's like a balance we want to walk with Skinny Man is like, we don't want to make him a farce, right? You want to make him deadly. So when you get to the end, you realize that he's very capable. So there was things that we were doing to make sure that he was on that path, that while there were little ebbs and flows and he could have his humor moments, that at no point did Skinny Man become a joke.
No.
So
he very easily could have been with some of the lines he's delivering.
Yes, and I think that's the tightrope I think you're talking about, and that's definitely one that we're very conscious of and trying to navigate that.
You have been sitting with this movie for 14 years, as we've been saying. You've been pitching it, you've been trying to get out there, and then you finally make it. You're about to bring it and get everyone to see it, and then COVID happens. So how has releasing this movie during the pandemic been in terms of does it make you feel a little bit flat, or are you still elated as hell to get out there for people to see it, or how's it been releasing it?
So look, I mean, Ian and I are huge fans of the theatrical experience. Number one, it's a bummer that it's not out in more theaters, but look, our number one thing is that people be safe, operate within your safety realm, do what you feel safe with, what's safe in your community. So that's the number one arc of our concerns, is for the public and their safety. But number two, it's like, we're thrilled to have the movie out there, right? Like, this is something we've been working on for 14 years. And we look at, there's times on set where they would be like, hey, can we get Santa Claus, the new U.S. military, and elves to set? And we'd be like, I can't believe we're getting to make this bananas movie, that we were able to go out and make this movie. And it's a real honor and a privilege, and we can't believe it sometimes.
That's so cool. That's so cool. I'm always happy here when because a lot of directors that I speak to, this is a passion project they've been trying to make for years, and it's finally out there. And I'm always buzzing to see that they've made it, that it's there, and that people are going to see it for more importantly. Is there maybe a chance that you might be looking at doing like a holiday shared universe?
Oh, interesting. Yeah, I mean, look, Ian and I have batted around some ideas. We have when we came up with Fatman, we had the one that we've made, and then there was a prequel, and now we've sort of like batted around the idea of a sequel. So we could definitely fill out the universe.
Yeah, awesome. I'm thinking get an Easter Bunny movie out there, Tooth Fairy movie, Sandman. Just go for it. Just throw it all at the wall. I want to see all these things grounded in reality, just batshit nuts. Last 20 minutes, throw the sink at it.
Santa killing a giant turkey for Thanksgiving.
I'm up for that. I'll watch that. Get Ryan Reynolds playing the turkey. I'm all right with that. what I'm going to do, guys, I'm going to let you go in a second, but I would like you. Sorry, I'm not going to demand, but I would like it if you guys could let people know why they should see Fatman, what kind of time they're going to have watching it, and just see it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, look, we set out to make a movie with a very grounded, Santa in a gritty world. If you enjoy a little drama, if you enjoy a little dark comedy, if you enjoy a little action, a little thriller, this is definitely your movie.
With a little Western undertones.
There you go, a little zest of Western.
and from my point of view, Walton Goggins absolutely nailing it. You got Chance Hurstfield is fantastic. Marianne Jean-Baptiste is unbelievable. Quite possibly the star of this movie for me, if I'm honest. And Mel Gibson, yeah, she definitely is. And of course, Mel Gibson in a role that I think is probably the best he's done in the last 10 years. So you guys you guys surprised me. You got me to watch a Christmas movie that completely subverted every expectation I had. And I'm looking forward to a 2020 Christmas now.
Awesome. Kevin, it means a mountain, brother. Honestly, that's all we can really ask, man. Thank you so much.
Yeah, we appreciate it, man. Thanks for having us on.
Not a problem, man. Thanks for tweeting out the review and liking it. And it was good to get a bit of conversation out of it. And you don't always expect that when I'm writing reviews, but it was just great that you responded and to come on the show. I'm buzzing. I've been jumping up and down all day about this interview. So
well, let's do it again, my brother.